I'm having a hard time deciding which background I like better because some of you have said you really like when I have like a blank wall behind me, that it's much cleaner. And then other people are like, wow, I love all the clothing in the background. That's so cool. Let me know which one you guys like down below. All right, so I have now done 2 Whatnot shows, and I thought it was about time I came on and shared how it's been going, my thoughts leading up to this point right now. So if you're mostly here for the sales, I am going to do a deep dive into both of those Whatnot shows and do a breakdown of how much sold, what sold for the most, what sold for the least, average sales and stuff like that for each show at the end of this video. So stick around. The numbers are honestly kind of shocking. If you guys are interested in joining my next Whatnot show, it's going to be October 23rd at 8 p.m. EST. That's right, I'm doing a late one for those of you that weren't able to make the last 2. The show is going to be all athletic wear. We're going to have new Attacks Ori and then some pre-owned stuff as well, Lululemon and other popular athletic wear brands. If you're interested in getting something for yourself or to flip online, I do have an exclusive link down below. It is whatnot.com/invite/Cayley Elaine. If you're not already signed up for Whatnot and you use that link, you will get $15 off of your first purchase on Whatnot. So you could basically get an item for free. You can use that on my upcoming show or bank it for future shows. If my show doesn't interest you, there are also shows going on 24/7 by other resellers, and you can use your credit on those as well. Hope to see you guys there. I'm not going to lead you guys on. I'm just going to get right to the point and tell you that I think this platform has major potential. They asked me if I would try doing live shows on their platform for the next several months. And so I have agreed to do so, but all of this is my honest opinion on how I feel about the platform. First of all, thank you to every single one of you who came on and supported me in my live streams. I saw some of you in there, and whether you were just there for moral support, you wanted to check it out, or you actually bought something, and I know a lot of you did, thank you so much for your support. I know a lot of people have been hesitant to try out live selling in general, not just on Whatnot, but any other platform, and I totally get the hesitation and the concern, which is why I thought it was important from someone who's never done live selling up until now to share my honest opinion with you about how it's going. What I really like about the Whatnot platform is that you can tailor it to your business, you can pivot at any time, and you can curate whatever works for you. To be honest, I haven't really found out yet what works for me, and so I'm committed over the next several months while I'm doing live shows on Whatnot to try out some different methods as I've talked about in previous videos. I can't really decide yet if this is a platform where I can work up to a point to make more full price sales, or if it's just a platform where I can move out older items or cheaper items. I know a big stigma with a lot of people about Whatnot is that items don't sell for as much as they would on other platforms in a buy it now format. I have thoughts on that, and I will share with you guys some data here in a little bit. So far, I have now tried out 2 different methods. I intend on trying something new out for every single show until the end of this contract. But to be honest with you guys, I feel like I'm probably going to continue testing it out even after that is done, because I'm just so excited to learn. I mean, it's just so interesting, the concept of live selling. And you guys know, I personally feel like this is where selling is headed, and I want to know that I am capable of pivoting if I need to. So far for my first show, I tried out just normal sourcing, just the everyday items. I pulled items out of what I would normally source and items that I paid full price for at thrift stores. I'll tell you how that went here in a second. And then my second show, I did strictly bins items. So I went to the bins. You guys probably saw the haul, but I showed everything in that haul that was going to be going on the Whatnot show. So I tried items that I got at a really low cost of goods. Again, more on that here in a second. For the next several shows, I'm going to try to do more curated shows, meaning shows that a certain kind of buyer would come to. And this is a tip that I got from somebody that I met at the bins who also does live Whatnot shows. So coming up, curated, I'm going to have a completely athletic wear show. That is the one that is coming up here in just a couple of days. Gonna have some new Attacks Ori. I'm gonna have some pre-owned stuff as well, some Lululemon and other athletic wear brands. So please join me over there if you're interested in that. I'm gonna see how that goes and see if I can't get, you know, the right type of audience for that show. I would also like to try a plus size only show. Try to have like curated sizes in general. One of the issues that I'm finding with Whatnot is that my audience is not yet big enough to have, you know, jumbled up sizes. And I think if I had more of a curated size, that buyers would actually come and be looking for their size and be willing to purchase a lot more in their size, versus they might come to a show that is completely random and there might only be 1 or 2 things in their size. So I'm going to try out a plus size only show. I'd also like to try out some trendier brands that don't necessarily sell super well anymore on buy it now platforms, but are really trendy and are what people are looking for. Things like Anthropologie, Free People, Urban Outfitters, brands like that. So I'm going to try a few of those curated shows and see how that goes, you know, tailored to a certain kind of audience instead of it, you know, being a wide array of stuff. And then at some point towards the end of this, I am also going to try pulling older items out of my inventory and trying to sell them on Whatnot and just get as much out of them as I possibly can. I'm just gonna call that like a clearance show. So I've got some things coming up. I am committed to testing out all of these methods and figuring out what is possible for my business. And that's the thing is, you know, this might not be for everybody's business. And that's why I wanna try out multiple different things just to see what works for me. Let's talk about the learning curve. I consider myself a pretty tech savvy person, and I read a bunch of tutorials, a bunch of articles on how to do things. Whatnot's pretty good about providing that information. However, even with all of that, I still feel like I had a little bit of trouble adding items to my show and, you know, setting them in the auction format and just little things here and there. So I feel like it was a pretty big learning curve in the beginning for someone who has never done live selling. And then once I actually got on to my first live show, I just like, I don't know, nervousness took over, anxiety took over. And even though I'm on YouTube and on camera a lot, I even do lives on YouTube, I was just outside of my normal setting and I felt extremely nervous. So trying to have that show and be present for my audience, plus navigate showing the items, and luckily I had Nikki on a separate device adding the items and starting the auction. But I think if I would have had to have done all of that by myself on my very first show, I don't think that it would have gone very well, because at least for me, it was a little bit of a learning curve and I felt kind of out of my element. After the first show was over, I actually felt like it was a lot easier than I expected it to be. The important thing is having your items loaded beforehand. You're supposed to be able to add them in, and I know some people do that, but for me, if I wouldn't have had all of my items ready to go and loaded into my live show at the time to start the auction, I don't think that I could have made that work. So there is, I guess I will say, a little bit of learning curve depending on your personality and how you want to structure a live show. But once I got done through that first one, I was like, wow, that was actually way easier than I thought. And even though I had nervousness, I felt like once I got that first one under my belt, I was like ready to go for the second one. I was excited about live selling and I wanted to jump into my second show. By the time the second show rolled around, I had no nervousness. I was like, I got it, let's go. And I felt more confident, and that one went really seamlessly. I think you just really have to get one under your belt and know that you're probably going to fumble through the first one. And then after that, once you know how it works, you'll be good to go. And it's super easy after that. I want to address this topic because I know that this has been brought up in the reseller community for the last year or whenever, you know, Whatnot exploded for clothing sales. And it is, can people actually make a living on Whatnot without having a social media following? The short answer to that, I believe, is yes. I believe that anyone is capable of doing anything. I know you're probably not going to take my advice for it because I have a social media following, and I honestly do think that that really helps to get there faster. But I think even if you have a social media following, you can still have crappy items. You can still have crappy shows or crappy customer service where you will drive buyers away, and you might not be able to build the following that you think you're going to have. Do I think that having a social media following in the beginning does help to bring people over quicker? Yes, I do believe that, but then you have to retain those people. I have been talking with several girls at the bins, some of my new reselling friends who are on Whatnot and have done a lot more shows than me, have a lot more experience, and they can attest that they are able to gain a following on Whatnot without having any social media presence, and they're making a killing over there. So do I think it's necessary to have a social media following before getting on Whatnot? Absolutely not. I think you can totally be successful over there. I do think it may be a more slower buildup, but I think if you have the right items, the right attitude, and the right customer service, and you do shows frequently, you will absolutely be successful over there. This is just kind of a side note, but based on what people were saying about how you could only make a living on Whatnot if you had a social media following, based on hearing all of that negative talk and what people were saying, I actually thought that with having 25,000 subscribers on YouTube, that I would be able to gain a following really, really quickly on Whatnot. But it's actually gone a lot slower than I expected. Currently, as we speak, I think I only have like 200 or 300 followers on Whatnot right now, which is not a lot, by the way. And I was still able to have successful sales on there. So I think it just really depends. I wrote a couple notes down of some things that I've just noticed while being on the platform that I thought might be helpful information for anybody that is new to Whatnot or thinking about selling on Whatnot. Number one, people can bookmark or save your show, which means they'll be notified when you go live on that show, and it'll also be saved in their save shows. What I've noticed is that you should probably expect about half of whatever your bookmarks are to actually be on your show. For instance, I had like over 100 saves or bookmarks on the show that I just did, my second show, but I actually only had like 60 something people get on. So just because a lot of people might save it doesn't mean a lot of people are going to get on. And I think that that is an important metric to kind of gauge how many buyers that you're going to have. Next note is that I didn't really know how long I should have my auctions going for. So you can choose the speed of your auctions. The two most popular choices that I saw were 15 seconds and 30 seconds. The first show I did, we did 15 seconds, and I felt like that was really rapid fire and really quick. I almost didn't have enough time to explain my items if I started the auction when I started talking about the item. So then the second show, we did 30-second auctions, and I felt like there was dead space where I had to fill up with talking because people would bid the last 10 seconds and it would add on time, and I would be watching this bid happening but have already talked everything about the item, and I would have to basically be entertaining to people and fill up the dead air, which is not my personality. So I'm kind of feeling like somewhere in the middle would be great. I think what we're going to do for the following shows is we are going to describe the item to its entirety and then start a 15-second auction. I think that is a good middle ground for me. But if you're thinking about getting on Whatnot, there are different auction times, and that was my experience with both of them. Something else that I think can make a huge impact on whether or not your show is successful is the time that you start your show. More people are available in the evenings when they are off of work and ready to sit down on the couch and maybe tune into your live show and do some shopping. So I do think that the late night shows are probably where you're going to have a bigger audience. However, on the flip side of that, if you had one in the morning or times where buyers aren't on, you also probably don't have as much competition with other sellers because most sellers I've noticed are doing it in the evenings. So there's some give and take there. All of my shows so far have been during my office hours. I've done them at 2 or 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is in the afternoon and quite frankly, smack in the middle of the day when people are probably at work, and I've still been able to have sales. In both shows, I sold every single item. I'm not 100% certain if I would have had it later in the day, if I would have had better luck with how much those items went for, but all I know is that I was still able to sell items. You guys know I love testing things out, so this upcoming show that you guys can bookmark for the athletic wear stuff, we are actually doing at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to try a nighttime show and see how it goes and if it makes a difference in sales. The other thing that I noticed was it does seem to be really important to have at least a few really good items to draw people in. So if you're gonna have a bread and butter show, probably have at least 1 or 2 pieces that you can draw people in with that they might wait till the end of your show for, or come to your show for and only wanna come for that item, but then stay for the rest of your show, see something that piques their interest, and then might purchase something else. But I do think having 1 or 2 really good pieces really helps to make the difference in getting people into your show. This is just my opinion, but it kind of seems like you have to sacrifice at least a good item, at least 1. So I'm going to talk about sales here in a second, but just really quickly, moving forward for the future, things that we are going to do is continue testing out different auctions, start times, and things like that. And then I will report back to you guys about how it's going and if I think it made an impact. My favorite method so far has been buying stuff from the bins, starting them at a really low auction price, and just being okay with whatever they go for. I like the bins method because I'm buying items for so cheap, like $1 to $2, that if an item goes for, you know, $5, I'm still making my money back and then some. It's a lot less stressful, I guess, and I feel better letting items go. Whatnot is definitely, you know, the struggle between, do I want to sell my items now for a cheaper price, or do I want to sell them on a buy it now site but wait 6 months for it to sell full price? And so I'm kind of going back and forth trying to figure out, you know, what works for me. Do I want to do a mixture of both? How does this work for my business? I can tell you that I really, really like the fact that if everything does sell, it goes out the same or the next day, and I don't have a lot of storage. I like being able to make a profit within 1 day instead of having to wait 3 to 6 months. Not only that, but there's not a whole lot of listing involved. So it takes far less time to list an item on Whatnot than it does to fill out all of those details on other platforms. So there's definitely some pros and cons. So I really like the bins method. I like getting items out quickly and being okay with them selling at a lower price. This last auction that I just did was, like I said, all bins items, and I started everything out at $1. The first show I did was all thrifted, like retail items where I paid full price at thrift stores. I started everything at $5. So I think it really depends on what you're going for, but to me, it seemed to work better starting at a lower price and lower cost of goods. I think it's a little too early for me to say whether this is going to be a super long-term endeavor for me, but all I can tell you is that right now I really like it. I am excited by the idea of trying new things, trying different methods out, and seeing if I can incorporate this into my business. But don't worry, your regular content is not going anywhere. All right, so let's talk about sales, the things that you guys are probably all here for. So I pulled a lot of numbers, so bear with me through this. You guys know I'm really analytical. I like diving into the numbers. I like knowing the data behind things. So I did pull a lot. So the first show I did, like I said, I did regular thrifted items. My average cost of goods was probably about $5. So total cost of goods was about $100, maybe $150. I ran and sold 20 items in that show, so everything sold out. I want to give myself too much, so I felt like 20 was pretty good. So 20 items, cost of goods about $100 to $150. I spent about 45 minutes with the actual auction part of the show, and then a few minutes afterwards talking. So all in all, it was a little less than an hour. I had a peak viewer count of 46 people. Now, there were people coming in and out, but at its peak, I had 46 people, which I didn't feel like was a lot. But I still sold every item. I sold all 20 of those items for a total of $295 gross. So 100 to 150 into about 300 bucks. I basically doubled my money. My take-home pay for that was around $250, I believe. The lowest amount an item sold for was actually my starting bid, which was $5. And I picked $5 just to basically cover my cost. And so there were a couple of items, not many, but a couple of items that sold at the starting bid for $5. The most an item sold for was a Johnny Was kimono, and it sold for $48. My average sale price per item with, all of those numbers ended up being about $15. It was $14.75 on average. So when I think about an average cost of goods of 5 into a gross $15, I'm doubling my money, but I'm not making a huge margin. But I'm selling it in 1 day, 1 hour actually. So the turnaround time is really good. Am I okay with doubling my money in 1 day? I think I am, but it's not what I'm used to. In that show, one item that surprised me a lot was I had a J. Crew kind of like safari printed dress. Now, it was a really cool dress. It was a unique dress. It probably would have sold for, a good chunk of change on a buy it now. But that J. Crew dress went for $35. I actually had quite a few back and forth bids on that dress. All right, the second show went a lot better than the first show. For the second show, I had 34 items, all of which were from the bins. In total, for all of the items, I spent around $75 for those items at the bins. I made a gross sales amount of about $545, and then my revenue ended up being about $490. So $75 into $500 is pretty good. I was only on that live show for an hour. That does not include prep work. That just includes, the show itself. I also have to ship out the items later. But for a live sale only being an hour, I turned $75 into $500. Like, that's insane. My average sale price was still around that $15 mark. It was actually about $16. Remember, I started everything at a $1 start price, which I think enticed a lot of people to come. The lowest amount I sold an item for was a pair of Old Navy New Attacks jeans, which I sold for $4. And then the most I sold an item for, which is the item I feel like everyone came for, which is why I said it's probably a good idea to have like a really good banger item in your lineup, was that Kitten Ace reversible jacket that I found at the bins. Now, if I was selling that Kitten Ace jacket by myself, I would have listed it around $75. I probably would have sent out offers to watchers and ended up selling it for $65. It ended up selling on the Whatnot show for $54. So probably just about $10 less than I probably would have gotten on a buy it now. So I am super impressed with that $54 sale, especially being from the bins. Some surprising sales within that show, and they're only surprising because I guess I just didn't think that they would sell for that much within a Whatnot show, is I had an extra large Knox Rose Southwestern print cardigan. It went for $19, and a pair of cut from the cloth jeans that went for $25. So I feel like I had some pretty solid sales. I believe my peak viewers for that show was around 66 people. So not much more than the last one, but definitely about 20 people more. And I think that's the key to Whatnot, is getting regular viewers so that you have a bigger pool of audience, because the likelihood that you're gonna have the right person, the right buyer for a certain item when you only have 20 people on is probably unlikely. But if you can have between 1 and 200 people on each show, I feel like your likelihood of having the right buyer for that item is much more likely, and then the likelihood of having multiple buyers for that item so that it gets bid up and they counterbid and all that is going to be much more likely with the more amount of people that you have viewing your show. So to me, the success of Whatnot is getting the right audience, having buyers frequently coming to your show, being available when they're available, and yeah, just having the right audience at the right time. So my goal is going to be to grow my audience over there and hopefully get somewhere between 1 and 200 people on for each live stream. That would be my goal. Yeah, that last show was absolutely killer. I had so much fun with that. And I'm just like, wow, in 1 hour, I turned $75 from the bins into $500. And it all sold in an hour. We literally shipped it out the following hour. Yeah, they're going off to new homes. Something I forgot to mention in my notes is that Whatnot will automatically bundle your buyer's stuff. So within both the first and the second show, I actually had quite a few people who bought multiple items and bundles from me, which was really nice. So as you can see, I am much more excited about the second show I had. I feel like it went a lot better, and that's why I kind of prefer the bins method, because there's no sweat off of my back when something sells for a little amount, and then when it sells for quite a bit, I am pleasantly surprised, and my cost of goods is super low. For right now, the bins method is definitely where it's at for me, but I'm going to continue testing other things for sure. For that second show and all of those bins items, I would have to say that I myself probably put in a total of 8 hours into that show, meaning driving, thrifting those items, prepping those items. I had to stay and treat a couple of them, listing those items, loading it into the show, having the show itself, and then shipping out those items. I think a total of 8 hours was involved, and that is me rounding up. And by the way, I did almost all of that myself, with exception to Nikki helping me during the live stream. So I'm thinking if someone who was solo did this, you know, that's an 8-hour shift and you make about 500 bucks. That's pretty good profit. I can definitely see why people are intrigued and switching over to Whatnot only, just because you don't have to house a lot of stuff. Stuff sells quickly, you're able to make your money back and then some, and it's a pretty quick thing. The turnaround time is just crazy. So that is how my live shows went. I definitely feel like I'm gaining some more followers over there, and hopefully you guys watching this, if you're interested, will go follow me over there and join me on my next live show. In the second show, I actually had people requesting specific like show categories for the next time. Like I had somebody requesting plus size, and I was like, that's a good sign to me that people are requesting different things and sizes for following shows, because that means they're probably coming back. Luckily for me and for them, I was already planning on doing a plus size show. I also noticed that there were a few people who were on my first live stream that also came to the second show and also purchased something. So I'm having repeat buyers as well. Thank you guys so much. If you're watching and you're one of those repeat buyers, thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart, even if you didn't buy anything, for coming on and supporting me. Those are all my notes, guys. Hope this gave you guys a little bit of insight as to how Whatnot is going so far, from the perspective of somebody that had no idea what they were doing, and hopefully from a pretty analytical mind, because I do like to dive into the data, my time, and all of that to make sure that it's worth it. So far, I think it is. Don't forget, if you guys don't already have an account on Whatnot and you sign up using my link down in the description box below, you will get $15 off of your first purchase. So you can use that on my live stream or anybody's live stream, but you can essentially get an item for pretty much free. So go sourcing on Whatnot or buy something for yourself, but either way, it is a free opportunity for $15. I will keep you updated as to how this journey is going. Thanks so much for following along with me. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.